Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And folks, as in high demand, the most watched, most wanted, really only internet and cloud news of the month podcast. Guys, how are you? Brandon, how are you? Aaron, how are you? Guys, are you prepared for the snow apocalypse, the winter apocalypse that's hitting the United States probably tonight? Hopefully, we don't get hit before the power goes out.
We're never prepared here in Texas, but we're going to live through it. You know, there's no amount of preparation because no matter what we do, it's always like a new thing breaks. Either we're out of power or, you know, I don't even know what it is. It's like the chaos monkey of weather. Whatever it is, we have not prepared for it, and we probably will, get through it in a very poor fashion.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Aaron, you don't have to go to France anytime soon, do you? Or
No, I don't go again until it's like 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, sales kickoff.
Okay. I'm supposed to go to Las Vegas on Monday, which probably won't happen. So I'm going to be getting the hourly updates from Delta going, your flight was changed, rebook.
Yeah. Red Hat sales kickoff in Vegas, and most of the people live in Raleigh or Boston. Probably not the best planning.
It's not. Well, I mean, it probably
Gotta go where the hotels are, man. That's where the hotels are.
It probably was great planning. It's just bad Mother Nature planning. So
That's right.
All right. Well, we got to bang through two really, really important things before we get to the AI and cloud news. First off, college football is now officially done. The playoffs are done. Thoughts on the playoffs? My opinion, they were amazing. But thoughts on the playoffs? Thoughts on not having college football now for 9 months, unfortunately.
It's the dark period.
I guess 8 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's officially the dark period. It's very sad. Sad it's over. I agree. Playoffs are great. They're always great. Football's always great. It was even better this year. I think, the Indiana story, fantastic. Maybe the best story ever in college football. The rags to riches story. So I thought it was great. No complaints. Everybody, has their own opinion about the playoff format and things like that. And it's like, at the end of the day, like I watch all the games. They were super fun. I'm already sad it's over. Already reading the way too early preseason top 25s for next year. What about you, Aaron?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I like your rags to riches because, the one thing I learned this year is, if Mark Cuban backs you, you can win a national championship.
So maybe it's applying your riches. Maybe that's what it's calling your alumni with the rich alumni.
So for those that, don't know what I mean by that, Indiana, one of the best seeds in history, wins the national championship, goes undefeated. And oh, by the way, they pretty much, bought the team. I mean, it reminds me of like LSU when Coach O and what was his name? Oh, frick.
Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Joe Burrow was there and all that. Like it's possible to buy teams and win national championships, and we just kind of proved it again this year.
I know, but I mean, the best part about Indiana was historically, we're getting a little in the weeds, but Indiana historically was the worst team ever, like for the last 7 years ever. Yep. And in 2 years, they've become the best and sort of the most admired. The unfortunate part about this is for anybody who likes sports, like this is fantastic and it gives everybody's team hope. Hell, it gives Mikey my team hope. But like this could never happen in tech. Like this, there is no rags that anybody can come from in tech, which is unfortunate because that part would be good.
No, I was going to add too that the playoff format, like I mentioned, we kind of went through the trough of disillusionment with the first round, but I think it came back. I think overall, I'm pretty happy with everything. Now, I will say this though, the post college football championship, all of the transfer portal stuff right up until the deadline. And then now there's stories of, players showing up on campuses and then all of a sudden ghosting them and then showing up at another campus for more money. And like I just saw last night, Clemson is suing Ole Miss or suing the player that went to Ole Miss. And your team
just stinks at this stuff. So
there's like 3 or 4 of them now. Like Duke is suing somebody, Clemson's suing somebody. I think there's another couple.
It's all good. It's all good.
It's going to be.
I think what it gets into is sort of like, and to your point about like maybe rags to riches is too strong in the cloud, but I think the thing I took away from it from like a meta commentary was like it's the ability to adapt to new regulations and adapting market conditions, right? That's really what's gone. So to your point, like It's true. Indiana, obviously, they had a lot of money to spend, but a lot of schools have a lot of money to spend, and it was a combination of like the regulations changed, so Indiana, who would never be able to do this, was able to spend money, coupled with kind of the perfect storm, a coach who through not even he planned it, but through a series of life choices and experiences made him good at evaluating talent that was, if you will, not heavily recruited. He had an eye for that because he coached at a lower level. And then finally, he took all these guys at a lower level and the change of regulations. He was able to bring them with him when he went from James Madison. And it's like, that's like it's just a good thing about like, when the markets change and regulations change, like how quickly do you react? And we were talking about some of the coaches now. It's like, it's interesting to see some of the older coaches coaches who had success in the previous era complain, right? Dabo. So we talked about some of them already, right? And it's like, hey, you got to like, this is like, what do football coaches talk about? Like no excuses. You got to adapt. You got to get better, right? And I think that's like a good lesson. Then I think, we're kind of seeing it as we maybe talk about AWS here in a second. It's like, you can talk about the old stuff, right? But like the new stuff is like, it's where Aaron is, right? AI and how quickly can you adopt agents and what are you doing with them and how do you get leverage of them? It's like the company, it's like it can shift fast. So I always think if your company or your coach is complaining about how the system has changed and it's unfair, that's probably an indication that you're not doing well. You're not adjusting well, right? It's the companies that be like you never hear about the Indiana people complain about like paying money or like having to recruit. They like that. They get over it. They're like, this is the system. So I like that metaphor, if you will, for business and maybe just for life.
Yeah, no. And well, the other thing is this for anybody who isn't following college football, but like your neighbors are like, hey, what is this thing I read in the Wall Street Journal about all these AI companies and people bouncing around? You're like, man, it's just like the NIL. It's just like college football. And if you listen to the Cloudcast, you'd be able to understand and draw parallels between those two things.
That's right. I think we had some people leave to go back to OpenAI after leaving Thinking Machines. After that's a perfect example of like, there's no complaining in business. You can complain all you want, but people are leaving, so get over it.
That's right. The other thing I think we need to get to. Let's see. We're going to cover January. Do we? Yeah, well, we should do this because we like to do predictions. The biggest event in the world, although I think the World Cup would argue this, but for the one-day event, biggest event in the world, Super Bowl is coming up. A couple of weeks here, probably 3 weeks before we get to the next, news of the month. Who are you predicting has the best AI, or what are you predicting for AI Super Bowl commercials? Because I have to imagine, the ad agencies are lining up to get NVIDIA, OpenAI, Anthropic money. What are you predicting? Are you predicting like famous people in them? Are you predicting like the boring OpenAI ones where it's just words scrolling across? What are you expecting from people this year?
I think OpenAI has to kind of come in with either some type of celebrity endorsement or like a more like kind of like Google was really good at this, like a use case, like, or Apple used to talk about how like this health device saves someone's life or something like that. They need to like connect on the emotional level. Because right now, as you already mentioned, like, they had to have these things and then the text just scrolls up in the middle and it's like, I just zone out. I'm like, what is like, I could just go to the computer and see this. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you doing? So I think they have to do something. And I think Anthropic is maybe the wild card there. Did they do something about like AI? Did they do some type of play on AI safety or something about like something along the lines of like we're not out just for all your money. We're out to help you and keep you safe from AI. That would be like a real interesting wild card. And then of course there's always like some like tiny startup that's going to blow like all of their marketing money on one ad that I have no idea what it is. But I don't mean, Aaron, maybe it's your stuff. What are you planning a Super Bowl ad? Maybe we should ask you.
Not that I'm aware of. I will say this though. I think Anthropic, is the dark horse, can absolutely do something cool and new and fun and probably safety related. I think Gemini is just going to be, it's like every commercial break, there's going to be a Gemini commercial. And then probably once a quarter, we'll see OpenAI and the scrolly text ones. They're just, they're just going to continue that campaign kind of thing. They're probably not going to roll out anything new. And yeah, to your point, there's somebody who's going to blow. I feel like with the AI funding, you have more than, one commercial's worth of money. So I think it's like, 2 or 3 in the first half. kind of thing is the new bar. I don't think one commercial as your whole marketing budget is the bar anymore. I think it is like your entire marketing budget goes into the first half now.
Yeah.
So I don't have any interest anymore in working for a startup, but I would, if I did, I would be like, okay, I would come work for you if we're going to do a Super Bowl commercial, and I want it to mostly use all of our marketing budget for the whole year. Like I want all that stress.
then you're good for the year.
That stress. I want all that stress piling up for the whole year. All right, let's get into the news. Let's see. You want to flip a coin? You want to start with cloud? You want to start with AI? Where do you guys want to start?
Let's start with cloud. It feels like that's the roots of this podcast. Let's make sure we get it in.
Well, I'm going to start with one because we used to do this a lot. Snowflake acquired Observe. So a friend of the show, Jeremy Burton, who I actually used to work for, CEO of Observe. We had him on when the company first started 4 or 5 years ago. Just got acquired for $1 billion. So it tells us two things. One, the market for observability or monitoring is still out there and active. There's still money in the banana stand, as they say. Do we think this will be the last monitoring and observability company, or do we think there is another one waiting in the wings now that the $1 billion threshold has been crossed?
There's always more money. There's always more money in monitoring and observability. There's not one. There's like 50 of just in the time that we talked about the show, 50 have been founded. There are like now 50 new startups doing it. I did think as I read through Observe, though, this one seemed like really in the family. They essentially built everything, as I understand it. They built everything on Snowflake. It was basically, it kind of almost reads like a feature of Snowflake, right? They shared the same venture capitalist. I believe the Observe CEO, the current CEO, is on the Snowflake board.
Right.
Kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess he has to leave. Does he have to leave the room? It's like, have a great idea. We should buy observability startup, and then he has
his fingers in his ears.
I'm just a random person. I have nothing to now. I want you to talk about this company, Observe. I'm gonna have to leave the room while you do. So it feels like this was almost like I feel like Brian, you had a lot of experience. Like there's almost like people used to leave Cisco and like build the next thing on Cisco's roadmap, and then they would just buy it, which fine business model. It's just. It just didn't feel like this had they didn't go out to the market and look at every observability company out there is my impression.
Right. Well, maybe that's the thing. The next observability company is going to be either built on Claude or ChatGPT or something like that, right? It's the next big data source.
And most importantly, as you already hit, you should say it's like they need to come on the Cloudcast because we know causation. Come on the Cloudcast, that's right. Get acquired for $1 billion. So that's the ROI that you can make. So they should be calling you right now and finding a slot to come on.
It is as simple as that. Amazon was in the news a lot. I can't quite figure out what's in the water at Amazon. I mean, we cover them a lot. We feel like we talked about them a lot. They came out of reInvent. It was sort of like, okay, cool. Like you've got some AI stuff now. You're kind of trying, and they just apparently they're going to cut another 30,000 people. Maybe half of them are going to be within AWS. That's the projection. They're still focusing on return to RTO efforts. Like what happened to sort of the day one mentality? It was just like growth. Like I understand, business is profits and costs and stuff like that. But like why is so much stuff out of Amazon just continuing to sound like it's so negative? When they're trying to sort of reinvent this day one stuff. It's weird it feels weird that Andy Jassy spends so much time on that stuff when forever he was just the innovation guy. I don't know. I don't get how they haven't, either tamped this down or figured out a way or, sort of grow their way around this stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think AWS has officially transitioned from the Steve Jobs to Tim Cook era of honestly, new CEO. Yeah, he might have had a different opinion before, but when you're in the seat, you might look at things very differently. And they just seem like an operations optimization company more than cutting edge, making sure customer first, all the new services, let's get everything they want. It's like, I think they're like, look, we made a lot of money. We during the way we grew a lot. We have a lot of fat. It's time to trim all that fat. And, it's unfortunate. I think the pendulum is swinging the other way for Amazon. As much as we want them to be the old Amazon, I just don't think they are. anymore.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the cut numbers are the thing that gets me the most. I mean, I really don't understand the RTO stuff. I mean, we're 4 or 5 years into it. People either are back in the office or they're not. They're either productive or they're not. Like, I don't understand that. I mean, but they are. I mean, it does feel like there is so much runway. Like, they launched this thing called Amazon One Medical. It's a health AI assistant. I mean, whether it'll work or not, the medical space is really, really complicated. But the concept of it seems like something that would be a day one Amazon thing. Like, hey, let's make it easy for you to interact and have it figure out where you're sick, have it figure out the paperwork behind it, have it interact with some sort of new, insurance thing or thing to get your prescriptions. Like, they should be able to like cut prescription costs. But like that is getting just overshadowed with all this other stuff. So yeah, maybe they are entering their Tim Cook era, which, on one hand, you're like, oh, that makes them the sort of boring company from a technology perspective. On the other hand, Apple made a lot of money under Tim Cook.
It makes them extremely rich.
It made them extremely rich too. So, well,
I did go back to your Sunday conversation not too long ago, right? You talked about the cloud 1.0, and I don't know. I thought that was a great episode, and I kind of summarized it in my mind, sort of like kind of the end of not the end of primitives, but the primitives have been built out, right? And that's kind of that's the Amazon bread and butter. And it's kind of like to our earlier conversation about football and other things. It's just like, I think they're trying to find their footing in this next thing. Like, how do they play in AI? What are they going to do? Are they going to build models? Are they just going to do GPUs? And it's like, they kind of haven't hit on that, their big growth part of that, right? Whereas some of the other companies they're competing with kind of have, right? So, and I think that's what you just kind of see here. You see a lot of like, well, do we need to reduce people? Do we need people working differently? And I think this is like maybe the ultimate thing to go back to is like, everybody says like, we're always going to be a startup forever, right? But like you're seeing the moment of like when you have a very large profitable business and things start to change, it's very hard, right? Because you got to manage two sides. You got to keep the thing you're doing well, and then you got to go to the new thing. And it's like every company has, like any company of success struggles with this, right? And that's why it's not enough just to say we're going to be a startup forever. It's like, okay, now to your point earlier, Aaron, it's like when you're in the chair, it looks different, right? You can't just be like, I got to manage this $120 billion business. I can't just like suddenly go off and do, launch Sora, like OpenAI. And it's just like, well, that was a waste, but like, who cares? That's OpenAI, right? You're not going to do that if you're Amazon. So,
you've got a great point there because I mean, look at it this way. It's like everyone says, oh, Amazon's behind in AI. Amazon's behind in AI. One of the reasons why I think they're behind in AI is they're just not willing to take money and light it on fire. Because that's what you need to do to get ahead in AI right now. And like, there's actually in our AI section, one of the AWS things in there is, they actually increase prices on their GPUs by 15%. You don't do that if you're trying to capture market share.
Yeah. And I think to your point, your Apple comparison is really good because like under the Tim Cook era, it's just kind of the same thing. Like everyone criticized Apple for the same thing. They didn't invest. Here they are, one of the most profitable companies in the world, and they chose not to invest. And I think it's the same kind of thing. They're managing to Wall Street. They need to make a certain amount of earnings. They're used to making a certain amount of money. And it's just very difficult in those situations to take these big investments. Whereas like if you're OpenAI or any of the other startups, like all you can do is make these investments. That's your whole life of your company is about figuring this stuff out. So again, I don't think it's unique to either one of them. And again, I think we should always like, if you will, I want to be careful. It's like Amazon's fantastic business, AWS, fantastic business, going to go on to make tons of money. I'm not like, there's no like, it's life is over. It's just like, maybe they don't do as well with AI. They're still going to do really well. And of course, maybe they were smart. Maybe we'll see in a few years making all these investments wasn't a good idea. Or maybe they missed it. It's like time will tell on these decisions. Yeah,
look at it this way. This time last year, we were like, oh, Google missed the boat. And they didn't, right? And so so I mean, it's just a matter of time. Right.
Yeah, we could say next time this year, we'd be like, Amazon bought Anthropic. We thought it was crazy. They paid like, I don't know, $800 million or $1 trillion for them or billions of dollars. And we'll be like, greatest acquisition of all time. Or we'll be like, that was crazy. I mean, who knows? You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think the question we have to ask is, and maybe we should start applying this to like all sorts of companies. Should Broadcom buy AWS and run the Broadcom VMware playbook on them? Start raising prices, get rid of the low end customers. I don't know. I mean, does that work? Are they big enough that applies to them?
Well, I don't know if Broadcom, it seems a little bit like maybe to answer your first question, like maybe that's what's going on in Amazon itself. They're like, hey, we want to apply this kind of Broadcom private equity discipline to the business. And I mean, it's working for Broadcom. I mean, the VMware thing has worked out so much better than I would have guessed. So I don't know. Maybe it's a little depressing, but it's profitable. So I don't know. It's a weird, chasm to navigate.
Yeah. There's some other stuff we can go into. The metaverse is now official. Meta has now officially given up on the metaverse, which is kind of weird. Because their company's still named Meta. But I understand that. Apparently, they were burning through like $50 to $75 billion a year, making legs.
At some point, that adds up after a while.
Exactly. Stack Overflow is officially dead. So we're pouring out for a couple. I don't know if I want to touch on the ChainGuard CEO stuff. I know you want to, Brandon. You guys covered it really, really well this week on Software Defined Talk. I guess the only takeaway I have from this is, in essence, the gist of this is everybody now is somehow in the either zero CVE or hardened Linux or hardened containers space. ChainGuard, who kind of originated this, is mad that everybody's in here, and they're kind of, they're mad that they're kind of, I don't know what's the word that everybody uses, like aping their concepts. They're kind of, but I don't know that I have anything that new to add about this. This just feels like normal market of like, hey, somebody got out there first. They created a market, and everybody else was like, okay, cool. Like you figured
all right, well,
out
then
where
I'm
money is.
going to give everyone homework. Just a blatant plug here. Go to Software Defined Talk right
absolutely.
now. Listen to episode 556. You'll get a lot of commentary, more than you probably want. There you go.
Yeah.
Just go listen to that. You'll hear a ton about it.
Yeah. Well, and then, if somebody wants to come on and talk about it, or more importantly, go talk about it on your show. I
think ChainGuard for sure needs to come on one of these podcasts. I think they have stuff to say. So come to the podcast and get your message out.
Yeah. All right. Last thing in the cloud space I've got is for a brief moment there, Intel was back. Intel's interesting. Intel, when the U.S. made their investment in them, when people thought they were sort of down and out, their stock was like $10. They're now up to like $45. They announced good earnings, and people were like, "Oh, okay, this thing is coming back." This is one of those ones where you sort of wonder. You're like, I don't know if Intel's back because I think they're still struggling with all of it, but I think it's good for the competition level. I think, like, I don't think they're back, but it feels like there's glimpses of hope that they're starting to become competitive, or at least somewhat relevant, which I think is a good thing. Going into 2026.
Well, I read in the announcements though, like it seemed like Apple and Nvidia had both like agreed to do business with them for like their quote unquote older chips. So
yeah.
I mean, that's not necessarily exciting, but it probably means like, okay, there is a bridge, right? Okay, if they can get good at making the quote unquote older chips, that eventually maybe Apple and Nvidia would actually allow them to make the new chips, the good chips, the expensive ones. So if you really are, want to be long Intel as an investor, maybe that's your point. It's like, yeah, things are bleak now, but like they're letting us make the old M1s and, the old stuff. And, and Intel's going to figure it all out. And the United States is going to back it either by forcing companies to invest in it or by directly investing in it. So maybe there's a case to be made, but it's a long road. If you're buying in now, you're probably saying like you're in for 10 years. In 10 years, this thing's going to be, a solid second to TSMC.
That's right. Yeah. All right, let's jump into some AI stuff. We pulled two things from the NVIDIA thing. Which one do you want to talk about? NVIDIA announcing this massive humongous new engineering feat, or them finally hiring a CMO?
Well, I feel we got to get Aaron's take on the, this on the engineering stuff. You're the one who knows what's going on over here. What do we need to know about that?
Well, I mean, the single biggest thing I would say is, I mean, it's a little bit like the other families of like, okay, cool. It's, it's going to be bigger. It's going to be faster. It's going to be all these other things. Like in that instance, it's kind of revolutionary in the fact that I think it's maybe going to be more cost versus efficiency than like the GB series was, or some of these others. So I think the VR family is going to be good. I haven't seen anything yet. I've heard supply chain issues will ease up. So hey, maybe it'll be something most people can actually get too on top of it. But I don't know. Like I'm just officially, when it comes to NVIDIA and new chip series, like it's always like, well, you announce it, and then a long time later it comes out, and then a long time later people can actually get their hands on it. Like the adoption curve like takes like a year to 2 years sometimes to where things are mainstream, and then they're already announcing the next one, right? And so like if nothing else, Jensen is an expert at like, keeping you on the treadwheel of like, okay, you bought that thing. Well, guess what? Tomorrow I'm going to announce the next thing. And yeah, we'll see. Do you believe the numbers that they I mean, because the numbers they talked about were kind of, I mean, they were outstanding. I mean, it's a completely new architecture and kind of a new way of doing stuff. But the numbers in the timeline that he was talking about it. So he's sort of like, okay, we've got this new Vera Rubin, which is, multiple chips and all together. And, but weren't they sort of like way beyond the normal, like, hey, it's been a year and a half. The new one is, twice as fast at whatever. It was like 3 or 4 times as fast. Like, do you buy into those numbers? Is that like, did they figure out some new crazy math to make this work for chips? We'll see. I mean, I would like to believe them. And then, I've read about it. I hadn't read super in depth into the architecture yet. Yeah. And, my company is probably going to be getting some in our computer offering. So, I'll be able to actually see stuff on the ground, when it actually hits on the ground. But I mean, it's hard to say, right? Like to give you for instance, back when I was at Equinix doing colo, I mean, the GB200s were announcing, and then we had one of the first GB200s, but it was way after it announced. And it was like, oh, okay, this is all public knowledge, by the way. We did a customer with Square. So Square was the first GB300. And the first GB300, it took so long to get that thing installed between the power and the colo and the liquid cooling. Like it's for me, as I kind of look at it on the infrastructure side for a second, the chips themselves are pretty amazing, but the amount of environmentals that has to go into it just to get this shit up and running these days. Yeah. Like for me, the environment is the barrier to entry now.
Right.
And until like I'm more worried about the efficiency side of everything, because until we get something that, I mean, because all the latest chips, there's very few air-cooled chips left anymore. Everything has to be liquid-cooled. Liquid-cooled is its own shit show if you're in colo spaces of like getting, the permits and requirements. And so like, I don't know. Like I'm very skeptical of all of this because, again, it's almost like, lab drag queens of like it performs really, really well in this one thing and it goes 6 times faster or 3 times faster or whatever. What's it going to do for the average person in an average data center?
Yeah.
Well, I have nothing to add on that. If it's technically good, I have no idea even how I would figure that out. But I'll just tell you this: based on the press release, there's a quote from every major CEO of a cloud service provider and a computer manufacturer, AWS, Microsoft, everyone. I was like, this has got to be the most quotes from CEOs of the biggest tech companies in the world of all time. I mean, it's just like, because you can see how it went down. It's like, we're about to announce this. I wonder if they just sent them what to say. This is the quote we would like you to say. And it's just, so it's incredible. It just shows you like whether or not it works or not, everyone is paying attention.
Well, and this is why they need a CMO. I mean, between a Super Bowl commercial and 10,000 quotes, like you need a CMO at that point.
What a job. I can you imagine getting the interview? You're like, yeah, sure, I can do it. I'll become a billionaire. Like, it's like, yeah, you just walk in and be like, yeah, let's do a Super Bowl commercial. Why not? Right? Like, what would you not do? You'd be like, let's just do everything. It doesn't matter.
You're like, I don't have to do the normal stuff. We're not renaming anything. I'm not making a new website. I don't have to do any of that sort of stuff.
It's like, yeah, we'll just like, you know what?
You don't have budget.
That's right.
Maybe you're like, Jensen, you get him a new leather jacket. You're like, we're going to put you in we're going to put you in a slightly different leather jacket. We're going to make crazy commercials. We're going to do just crazy stuff. We're going to host and sponsor podcasts like this one. It's like, just do everything. I mean, like what, like when would you ever say no?
Yeah. No, well, I mean,
I will say this though.
They're already running him through a plethora of leather jackets, right? He had sort of the Michael Jackson sort of alligator looking one at CES.
Yeah, that's weird though. Yeah. It wasn't good for TV or video. It kind of too sparkly.
And he had a toned down one for the World Economic Forum. He had sort of like a formal looking one. So there's some thought going into this. Aaron, I want to know this much, and I don't know if you know, but I need you to find out. like if you're getting a shipment of these new GPUs, like the new ones, right? Do they show up at like in like a normal FedEx truck with like a pallet, or like do they come in like a Brinks truck?
Brinks armored truck.
They're so freaking valuable.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know what? That's actually a fantastic frigging question. I mean, not like, and you've heard stories of like especially in Asia, like, I mean, you know, there's very much a black market, and there's very much, you know, these things fall off trucks.
I mean, I can see the
Fast
and the Furious guys are going to hijack one of these in one of the.
Aaron, this is great content. I need you to go wherever your company's going to be taking shipment, and like you need to get out your phone, make a video of it. And this will be a great TikTok, YouTube video. Be like, okay, we're taking delivery of like the black, whatever you're taking, Blackwell, and here it is. It's coming in. It's coming off the pallets. Like, what does it actually look like? Who shows up?
So this reminds me of this is a super deep cut for everyone that's out there. Anybody who hasn't been listening to this show for like 10 years, this will go over your head, but I'll try to explain it. Joe Onasek, you know, old friend of the show and guest many times. He was doing an install. This is back in the VCE, VBlock, and FlexPod days, and there was like a truck with a couple, you know, boxes of servers or whatever, and he was like, "Oh, look, there was FlexPod, you know, showed up at the loading dock kind of thing," and everyone just kind of mocked him relentlessly on Twitter for a little while for, you know, FlexPod coming in a truck and a couple of boxes kind of thing. And but I mean, we might be back to that. We might be back to that.
I think we are.
Secret locations. All right, next on the big board of, I mean, you know, I'm looking at this. January was a big month. We were checking off some big things. Apple finally agreed to ditch OpenAI. They signed up with Google to be their new. I don't know if this is going to be Siri or all the things within iOS, but you know, OpenAI and Apple are done. Google and Apple back to longtime friends. You know, this sort of feels like what it should be. Any thoughts on this one, or is this just like, yeah, I expected this to happen? You know, let's get on with Apple doing AI stuff.
Well, it's funny. Technically, the OpenAI people said they chose not to to bid. I always like that. It's like, no. We didn't break up with you. I broke up with you. You know, you didn't break up with me. I broke up with you, kind of thing. So I thought that was kind of funny.
That's right.
It does seem like the natural order, right? It's like, well, Siri can't be any worse. So, I mean, it's like, why not? Like, if Gemini seems like a natural fit, and, you know, I assume now that they've made the one press release, it'll just like, Apple will never mention it again. We'll talk to Siri, and if it's great, Apple will be like, it's great. And Google will just quietly say nothing. And they'll just, you know, make, because I think it's a very nominal fee for these companies. I think it's just like $1 billion. And I think Google's just very happy to be like, don't look over here. We're just quietly running this business, making all this money. And Apple and Google will be very happy to just be quietly working together and making billions of dollars. And they'll let OpenAI just go do whatever it wants. So I think it'll be good. It'll be good for all of the iPhone users out there. It'd be good to have something that's actually much better than the current Siri.
Yeah. This is Apple Maps all over again. Apple Maps when it first came out was a freaking train wreck, and everyone used Google Maps, and Apple took 3, 4, 5 years, however long it was, to actually get a decent product. And hey, you know what? Apple Maps today, it's a decent product, but it literally took years and years and years. And I think Apple is now figuring it out, especially with the talent war and, you know, these days of NIL in AI, of like, it's hard to keep people, it's hard to build a team, it's going to take a long time, and they just severely underestimated. And I think this goes again to my Tim Cook comment. Like, they were like, hey, we can just kind of hire some teams and build something and get it out the door. And it's like, the game's changed.
No. Well, I do think we could play it 2 ways. I think we either say it's sound financial management, good partnership, and they'll be it will benefit both for a long time to come. Or we could also say, like, this is the moment Apple unknowingly gave away the gates. You know, this is sort of like they had this unbelievable monopoly, but no one could understand that, like, actually the device no longer matters. It's just the, you know, if you will, the AI is going to take over. And this is like the Trojan horse. And while it makes good business sense now, you're giving up this huge thing without even knowing it. You know, it's sort of like, maybe the good analogy would be IBM saying to Microsoft, that's fine, you license the operating system, we'll just sell the hardware. And then it turned out the operating system was the thing. So hard to know, but again, like I as I sit here now, if I was Tim Cook, I'd do the same thing. So anyone who says they would do differently probably is lying.
That's right. The worst kept secret in AI, OpenAI is going to launch ads finally in ChatGPT. Have any of you guys seen any ads show up in your ChatGPT?
Not only the screenshots, not live.
I was trying this morning a bunch of stuff and it didn't pop up at all for it. I was just trying to give
Did you just tie show me ads?
Like show me an ad.
Yeah, well, I just kept being like, hey, I'm gonna make this food. What should I buy? And like crap like that. I need
a new toaster. What do you recommend?
I'm going to an event. What should I? Yeah, so nothing showed up yet. So I'll be curious to see how it pans out. I don't know if I fit the right demographic yet for the ads, but
well, isn't it only on?
It's only on the free tiers.
Only on the free tier, and then that other like $8 tier.
Yeah,
or something.
It's like Aaron. What was that Google thing, Okert or whatever, that was only in Brazil? Yeah, this was like, I think the $8 one is only in like Asia. It's only like in India, maybe something like that.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Which it's only a billion 3 people.
But we should give out some more homework here. I think if you're really interested in this, you should listen to Stratechery, Ben Thompson. You have to pay, but he's been pretty much all over. I think his take is kind of interesting. It's sort of like they're launching the most obvious and the worst ads, which are the ones you're kind of describing, just like placement based on like the query. So like, hey, I want to buy a toaster, what it is. And his whole point is it needs to be more like Instagram, where it's like, no, like I see all the things you've been talking about, and I kind of have a sense of who you are. And like, I don't care what you're asking me about. I'm going to show you something I think you want, which is probably the more realistic way to make money, right? It's like, that's probably, so it'd be interesting to see how it works out. But as I've said many times on this podcast and others, is like, we have a lot riding on this. If this it goes poorly and they don't make any money, I feel like all the 401ks, everybody's, that it could be the first little sign that things in the world of AI are not going well, and that will show up in bad stock market performance.
Yeah. I mean, they did say they were, they did $20 billion or whatever ARR this year. They said they did $1 billion still of like just the API. So I mean, they're losing some market share to to Gemini, at least allegedly, based on some of the people that are able to track stuff. But I mean, I think it's losing market share in a pie that is continuing to grow, very, very quickly. So it's going to be interesting. And if you follow the Ben Thompson stuff, Ben just basically says, look, you are a consumer business. The only way to make money in a consumer business, or at least one of them, is, ads have to be the foundation of everything you do, because they allow you to keep reaching more people for free, and then the advertise, more
and
people,
they scale with your usage, they scale and things like that.
It all makes sense. And at this point, like, if anybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm dealing without ads, it's like, okay, where have you been the last 20 years? It's part of everything. So not a big deal.
Something's got to pay the bills, man. If it's not you, it's ads.
Yeah, that's right. Last thing I want to hit on, there's lots of stuff in the show notes. You guys can go take a look at them. It for whatever reason, and maybe it's just their month to be the belle of the ball. I feel like everybody is all of a sudden talking about Anthropic. Whether it's like there's a bunch of interesting articles these days about like, hey, I finally figured out agents and I figured out agent clusters and I'm doing some stuff, or, they just launched Claude Cowork, which is, this thing, it's sort of like agents for everybody that's not a software developer. Did something flip, or, why are we all of a sudden, kind of getting all this really positive vibe about Claude? I mean, they also, I guess, are raising money at like a $350 billion valuation. And some of the VCs who originally were like, I'm only going to invest in one of you, is, Sequoia is now like, nope, I don't have any favorites anymore. I'm investing in everybody. Like, what flipped with Anthropic, or was this just their turn to sort of get the buzz?
Well, I'd say, my take is that they sort of pioneered the coding agent, right? Everyone's like kind of figured that out first. And then I think a lot of people were like, well, actually, this agent, when it's on your computer, it can do a lot more than just code. It can kind of do, and I think that's sort of like led them to like Cowork, right? And they sort of, it's almost like someone else said this. It was, it's like, they're kind of like what we thought Copilot should be. Like Microsoft was going to do Copilot and never like really did anything, but like, and it's sort of like, I think they've just kind of grown this, if you will, productivity enterprise look at AI. And I think everyone's just experiencing it more and more. And I think now you're even getting to the paradigm shift of, and I think, you have a link in here. It's like, you should go read, I think it's Steve Yeagy's Gas Town. So it's just like the idea of like, no, don't just use one agent to like, kind of, if you will, code with you. It's like you send out like a fleet of agents, right? And he talks about how to do it through spec-driven development. And if you just do that, you can build like an entire, universe of software applications, and in kind of putting on the head that like the idea is like, no, you never look at the code. You like this thing is completely built in through AI. So I think it's a combination of all of that coming together and people looking at it like, oh, wow, like maybe this is the new way, right? Maybe this is the way to build truly enterprise software and do app modernization at the scale we've been talking about. So again, like, you said, like next month, we may have figured out like, well, that was crazy. It doesn't work at all. It's just too complicated. Or maybe it's the beginning of it. So I think that's why people are most interested in it. What are you seeing, Aaron?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what they've done is they've really cracked the code with the latest Opus model. It is pretty amazing at coding. And by the way, too, like that's just, I mean, I think all of Twitter is a kind of a buzz with that. And then apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but I read it somewhere. The Claude Cowork app or, platform was basically written in Claude code pretty much by agents. And so like, that's how they came out with it so fast. And so you're just starting to see this, this environment where like, okay, what they did is they lowered the barrier to entry, and basically not just that, but you can now do parallel work streams of like Gastown and all these other orchestrators where you can do a whole bunch of them at once. And then, oh, by the way, guess what? Some of the stuff might come back as complete shit. And some of it might come back as great, but it didn't cost you anything other than the time for the agent to go run in the background and the token cost and things like that. And I've even seen, if anyone out there has heard the term LLM judges. And so what'll happen now is you've got, like maybe 5 agents, go give them pretty much the same task or maybe slight variations on the same task, have them all come back. And then instead of you evaluating everything, you have another LLM that kind of judges them. So now you have like agents doing work and it's like, okay, which one did it the best? And then I'm going to keep that. And it's almost like this reinforcement learning, but almost at a human level kind of thing. And it's super fascinating because where I think everyone is talking about this is it has just opened up this new way to go faster and do work that's low friction.
And I was thinking, as you're talking there, it's like, it's almost like we should almost keep markers of like, we talk about this stuff so much. I mean, it's easy for us to gloss over, like, is it working? Is it not? But like, I think we can definitively say like software development has fundamentally changed forever, right? Like probably not since the advent of a compiler, a widely used compiler has something like completely changed. I can't imagine any professional, much less, hobbyists, but professional software developers are all going to be using these agents. Like you have to, like, if you don't, like, it's almost like, why would you like write stuff in assembly? Why would you not use it? I mean, you have to. So I think going forward, like this is, so if we just think of AI as like fundamentally change this industry, it'll never be the same. I think if you're majoring in computer science, going forward, your experience is going to be much different than the time way back, Aaron and I, we all went to college. It's going to be completely different what they learn is my take.
Yeah. And the other thing I wonder is if, so we've had this interesting sort of yin and yang with software developers and coding assistants for the last couple of years, right? Like on one hand, it was like, cool, I kind of found this thing, it does pretty cool stuff. And then everybody kind of went through a little bit of trough of disillusionment of like, oh, but it didn't build me great code. And then there was a little bit of like, oh, is this thing going to displace me, whether it's good or bad or whatever. And I feel like we're now sort of going through another little, I don't know if it's a wrinkle or if it's really a big thing where people are like, oh, wait a second. The equation I shouldn't think about is like, is this a 1-for-1 like me versus the agent? Which one of us stays? And I feel like this is something where like smart companies who understand that like they can do a lot with software start going like, hey, if I were smart, I would love to have like 2x as many software developers or 5x as many software developers because we have a backlog of business ideas that we could go address, or we could go create better, user experiences, or we could go analyze stuff better. I wonder if this, as people start figuring out these, like, hey, I could let these things run for a long time. It sort of changes the conversation from this sort of, kind of fear, should I tell anybody I'm good at my job with this thing? Is this a replacement thing to like, wait a second, if I know how to harness 10 of them, and I know you hate the idea of like managing a bunch of agents for like status updates, but like if you can harness them as if it's like, hey, I actually have 10 new hires on my group, like that seems like a really powerful mindset to sort of take forward as opposed to the sort of like maybe positive, maybe negative thing that we've been dealing with for the last couple of years.
No, I think you hit on it too. And I would say, like, I've sort of changed my mind. I think as like Gastown's probably the best example, but there are others. It's sort of like, the thing I didn't like is like, oh, you just like tell these agents to go off and like do your job and then come back and they report back what they're doing. And it's like, I don't know, I'm still don't quite understand that or how this can work. But this, like the Gastown is sort of like, no, I'm going to sit down. I personally am going to go through, and that's kind of what it does. It walks you through, like, what do you want to do? And you sort of like spend time telling the agent, kind of the classic PRD, here's what I want. Here's what it means successful. And you kind of get it all set up and it's all running and you tell it what it means to be done. Right. And it's sort of like that kind of function, I think. And maybe I just didn't get it. Maybe that's sort of like has clicked for me where it's like, oh, that is great. Where this thing is doing all this stuff. And I come back and I can see like, yeah, all the unit tests passed and I can use the application. That seems like that's the kind of thing that's like, to me, very like tangible and realistic versus like schedule my meetings, do my travel, like write my, it's like that other stuff. I never, the orchestration of it doesn't seem as clear to me. But this, I mean, I think it's definitely why people are really excited. And then finally, maybe as we wrap up, it's sort of like, I think to your broader point, like, it's fine if it's just a better set of tools. Like, I think people like don't like if it's not like lights out, like everyone's fired and it's like AGI is taking over the world. People kind of think that's the end, but it's like, no, like if these were just better tools and we're all like get a lot more leverage, that's a huge win, right? What you said before, it's like now we can have a software developer do a lot more, and that's great for everyone. And hopefully they can solve better and bigger problems.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I think we're on the verge. Like this is a sneak peek into what will eventually be a new job market. It's gone from, hey, a developer, using a coding copilot or, a coding assistant and some of these other things to do their job. But I think we're on the verge of like, yeah, it's almost like a agent orchestrator, project manager-y kind of role where like, yeah, you have the domain expertise and where, what success looks like, where it needs to go. And enough to keep it on the rails. But I mean, it's almost like you become less hands-on and more project manager. And I can very much see that being almost an entirely new role where, instead of managing people, you're managing agents.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're managing things that do stuff. I mean, that's no different than what happens in manufacturing. It happens in
exactly.
If you were running a consulting organization, you'd actually want them to all sort of operate the same way and do things the same way. And so yeah, interesting stuff. I agree with you, Brandon. Though we should find some way to sort of track this stuff to figure out. Where are we on various continuums, and are there real milestones we should kind of keep track of? So, and no, by the way, if anybody's wondering that word Gastown that you kept talking about, there is a link in the show notes. Steve Yegi, who was the creator of it, is sort of a famous developer, had worked at Google and Amazon, and kind of put together this like orchestration framework. So if you're curious about it, there's a link in the show notes. You can go take a look at it. Looks interesting. There's been a whole bunch of things spun off from it already, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. So, all right, guys, we've been going for a long time. We've got a massive weather storm coming through. Hopefully you all stay safe. We got this done before the power went out, so that was a win.
Before the Texas power grid went down for Brandon's power grid.
It's going to be the last time ever. Last time for several months before I'm back on the show. We'll never know. Right.
This might be the last. Yeah, exactly. So anyways, folks, thanks for listening. Hope this was useful. We will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.